polio pathogenesis. So there are a few things important about pathogenesis. First of all, it has a human-only reservoir. So reservoir. And what that means is this polio virus is found in humans, and it causes disease only in humans. It doesn't do the same in animals. So you'll see what the implications of this are when it comes to eradication of polio and making vaccines for it. The next important thing about polio pathogens is that it's spread from fecal oral. So I think I talked about this in my first video about polio, and it's that they go, basically it's, you're eating food and that food has a few bits of poop from someone who had polio, because of bad sanitation, bad hand washing, bad sewage system. So basically it's, from your butt to your mouth. Okay, so keep it clean, guys. And so you see that the fecal oral route, this is part of the reason why a lot of poor nations, third world nations and developing nations have a problem with polio. And it's usually because they have a bad sewage system, bad sanitation system. So places like India, for example, or in Southeast Asia, places in Africa, they are regions where there are countries or areas where the infrastructure isn't that great to get rid of sewage in a safe and clean manner. So you'll see higher rates of polio in those nations. It's pretty sad. So, and it's also combined with the fact that their healthcare system can't afford to have vaccines, which is almost like a double whammy for them. So that's why you see here in the US, we not only spend a lot of money on polio vaccines, but we also spend a lot of money on a good sanitation system, good working sewage system. I think I remember from NCDB 132, Dr. Mahan said that having clean water and having good sewage system was one of the greatest medical inventions, and it's because of diseases that go through the oral. Okay, so I'll write this down real quick. The next thing is that polio has three serotypes. And all of them, and the serotypes are T1, T2, T3, and they are all of them So now here are the stages of infection. I'm a little bit big. Here, we'll erase all this, and we'll do, so I'll pause for a bit, let you guys pause it if you need to, and then we'll do stages of infection. So there are 5 steps, or 5 stages. I'll list them out here, and then we'll draw a picture, and go into more detail. So the first stage is ingestion. Ingestion of the virus, which is basically viral entry or infection. So Dr. Samuels, I think he calls it infection. So ingestion, infection, viral entry, same thing. That's the first step. Virus has to go inside, get inside the body first. Once it's inside the body, it begins alimentary phase, which is basically where the polio virus stays inside your digestive system. And that's why I guess that this is why people call the second stage the alimentary phase. I think it's a Latin-based word, which basically means food or substance, and your digestive tract. You eat food, your digestive tract digests the food there. So alimentary phase is just saying that the virus is in the place where food is at, your digestive system. From there, it moves to your lymph nodes. And from your lymph nodes, it can find into your blood. And then the fifth and final stage is the neurological phase. The virus is just in your neurons replicating and so forth. So these are steps. And then, so something about the neurological phase, which I'll show later when I draw the diagram, is that it can, when it's in neurological phase, it can actually also live outside of your neurons. So it can go back and forth between your neurons and non-neuronal cells. And if it's able to do that, then you can get like a recurrence of polio, even if you fought off like one polio infection and some of it hit away your non-neurological cells, and it can come back. Yes, okay, so let's try that one again. Okay, the diagram. Here, that's how it is. First you have to ingest the virus. And on this side you can have it go into your oral pharyngeal mucosa. So basically your throat kind of goes to your tonsils, which is lymphoid tissue, and then it goes into even deeper lymph nodes. On your lymph nodes, as we said before, goes to your blood. From your blood, it can go back and forth between your central nervous system. And from your, I meant to say, it can only go from the blood to your central nervous system. Once it's inside the central nervous system, then it can go back and forth between regional nerve just basically, you have your central nervous system, and then you have like a bunch of our nerve tissues that are clustered, and Polio can go between that here and just back and forth, back and forth. On this side, you eat the virus, it's ingested, so now it's ingested. It's like in your GI tract. So this is basically, maybe I should put down like ingested viruses and like it's in your, in your mouth. And here, when I say ingested here, it means GI tract. So from your GI tract, it can go into your part. There are these tissues called Peyer's patches inside your small intestine, and those Peyer's patches are made of M cells, and basically polio infects those. I think the M cells, if I recall correctly, the M cells have, or the Peyer's patches have macrophages. If it's inside, I can only guess that if it's inside your macrophages can go to the lymph node, and guess what the next step is? Mesentery lymph nodes. So I'm not too sure about that. I'm only guessing given what little Dr. Sanders said. I'm also just thinking another thing that could happen is from when it's inside your intestines, it goes into your Peyer's patches. And your Peyer's patches are right next to the lymph nodes inside your lymph tissue next to your intestines. Doesn't necessarily need to go into a macrophage. I think, actually thinking about it, I think if it went to a macrophage, the polio would just die. So, I'm not sure how that works, but essentially, these two are so close together, it can jump from here to here. So, this is why I'm not a PhD in biology. But maybe you guys can, hopefully I helped you understand the point that you go from Peyer's patches to here. Okay, from here, from the lymph nodes, because your lymph does drain to your blood, it can come to your blood. From your blood, you go to non-neural tissue. From there. So you can see polio, once it's inside your blood, it can really do this. If it's on this side where it goes into your GI tract, so the point of entry, if polio goes into your blood via the GI route, your intestinal route, then you just cycle all the way back to your CNS, and then you just swap the arrows, go to blood, and you end up at your central nervous system, get paralysis, so forth. Or if the polio doesn't do that, and it decides to get into your blood via your tonsils, then just follow the arrows, and you still end up at your central nervous system. Either way that you trace the arrows, you pretty much always end up excuse me, in your central nervous system. And whether you're infected, if you inject polio, if you eat the polio, or it goes into your tonsils, you're going to get infection of your central nervous system. So I'm gonna get a bit more. Okay, so that's the pathogenesis of polio. So from here we can talk a bit about its eradication. Erase this. So in my first video of polio, I mentioned, and Dr. Sanders mentioned, that there are three serotypes. And I can only imagine making a vaccine for one serotype is very hard. making 3 is probably even harder by, I don't know, like more than a factor of 3 for sure. But thankfully, the polio isn't something like salmonella where it has salmonella has thousands of serotypes, or it's not like the rhinovirus, which causes common cold, which has more than 100 serotypes, if I remember correctly. So thankfully, it has 3. Hard, but a lot more doable. Roman numeral 2. Vaccine. Eradication. So for eradication, we know it has 3 serotypes. All serotypes are infectious or are disease causing. And its reservoir is human reservoir. So with all that said, the eradication is possible because of low serotype number, or low number of serotypes. And human reservoir. So Dr. Sarah says that he's pretty, he's a professor, so I agree with him. And it makes sense too. Polio can get eradicated, but we'll also need good sanitation and definitely vaccines for everyone. So get vaccinated. And then a bit about the vaccines. So history of polio vaccines, there were 3 vaccines. The first one was the Salk vaccine, and that's named after, I guess, like the guy who headed the lab, the researcher who headed the lab that made this first vaccine, Jonas Salk. And the Salk vaccine. The Salk vaccine is an inactivated polio. Just in case you don't know what inactivated is, it basically means kill polio. So what they do is they take polio virus and they mess it up a bit using chemicals. I think it's like formaldehyde or something like that, and it basically prevents polio from being able to do its job. However, it still keeps its structure, its particularly its protein capsule, so that you still have an immunogenic agent, but it just doesn't do anything to you. So your body is essentially able to get primed for polio, and if your body gets infected with real polio when it's not inactivated, then it can mount an aggressive enough secondary response to kill off the polio before it can do neurological damage. So the Salk vaccine is inactivated polio. Then a second guy named Albert Sabin. So the Sabin vaccine is live attenuated polio. So this vaccine was just simply, it was polio that was still quote unquote alive. It could still do stuff, but all it just couldn't do was cause disease. So, and the significance of this, I'm guessing, why would anyone want to make a new vaccine? This one is working perfectly fine. I'm guessing that the advantage of the Sabin one was the fact that it was an oral vaccine. And it probably makes things a lot cheaper too. Instead of having to build a sterile needle, sterilize it, and then and then put the vaccine in the needle or syringe and then inject it, and then you have to deal with patients not wanting to vaccinate their kids because the kids are going to cry, and it just hurts for adults too. And, you don't want to do any of that. The oral vaccine just makes everything so much easier and so much cheaper. I can only guess that that's the reason why this vaccine was developed. However, later on they discovered that one of its drawbacks was that because it's live attenuated, meaning that it's still able to it's just not disease causing, but it can still do stuff. It's still essentially like quote unquote alive, but its drawback is it can have reversion to live virus. So if any of you took MCV 132, you remember Dr. Mahan, he had like a whole lecture or 2 lectures on vaccines, and he said one drawback to this vaccine is that your vaccine could literally can revert back to being a virulent virus. And so I'm only guessing, if you're vaccinating a baby has never been vaccinated before, so it's actually susceptible to real polio, to live polio. If you vaccinated this vaccine and this vaccine had somehow, out of factory it had reverted, then you just basically get baby polio. Or maybe the vaccine worked in a baby, but the baby's parents, for some reason, were not vaccinated, or maybe the baby had maybe the baby was in contact with another baby that was not vaccinated yet. So on and so forth. The vaccinated baby can come into contact with people who are unvaccinated, and this vaccine, it could have a reversion mutation inside the vaccinated baby, and the baby can then spread that to unvaccinated people, and those unvaccinated people can get sick and become paralyzed from polio. So a case about that Dr. Samuels mentioned was there was 162 cases of polio. I think it was from 1990s to 1999. 1990. And all but 8, so 154 of those cases were traced back to Sabin vaccine. So 162 cases, you know, you might be saying, oh, well, that's not very much and so forth. I mean, come on, that's 162 lives that were affected by this vaccine. And, you know, there are better ways to, there's like a safer, better way, albeit just more expensive way of vaccinating. I think it'd be better to vaccinate with the inactivated polio vaccine, which we then did. So, we as in the nation. So, the third vaccine that was about was the IPOL. I didn't record down what it stands for, I'm assuming it's just inactivated polio something. Polio. So IPOL vaccine. And that vaccine is a cocktail of serotypes. And more importantly, it's inactivated. So this is a good thing. So people, there's no chance of a polio vaccine having a reversion mutation and becoming real live polio anymore, which is good. I can only guess from here on out the next step is to make an oral vaccine that's inactivated, but I don't know if that's possible or how much research it's going to take. But yeah, so we went from pathogenesis of polio. We covered steps. So there are 5 stages to polio pathogenesis. First, you eat it, and then it goes into your intestines, and from your intestines it goes into your lymph nodes, from lymph nodes into your blood, and from your blood, which feeds your neurons or brain and so forth, it can go into your CNS. And then we talked about vaccine and its eradication. So its eradication is possible because it has a low serotype number, and because it's a human-only reservoir. It's found in humans and it only causes diseases in humans. And the vaccines are 3 types. There were 2 types that were used: the Salk, which was inactivated; the Sabin, which was an oral vaccine, live attenuated, which had its dangers. And finally, we are now on the IPOL vaccine, which is inactivated polio.